Yes, dear friends, very good morning and very warm welcome to my channel, Business Laws channel. So, how are you all? I hope you must be having good health and enjoying at your sweet house. So, friends, in my last video class, I had completed chapter number 2, which was offer and acceptance. And today I'm going to start chapter number 3, which is consideration. So you all know, friends, under section 10, there are a number of essentials of valid contract given. And one of the essentials of valid contract is there must be lawful consideration. And if there is no consideration, then there is no contract. Not only consideration should be there, but consideration should also be lawful. So friends, consideration has been defined under section 2D of ICA 1872. When at the desire of the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing, or does or abstains from doing, or promises to do or to abstain from doing something, such act or abstinence or promise is called a consideration for the promise. Now, consideration term, friends, it is a technical term which is always used in the sense of quid pro quo, which means something in return. The something in return should also be legal and also be lawful. Now, X agrees to sell his TV set to Y for rupees 8,000. So, TV set is a consideration for Y, and 8,000 is the consideration of X. So both the parties are going to, X is going to part with the TV and Y is going to part with the amount, which is 8,000 rupees. Now, components of consideration. If you analyze the definition, we find, friends, there are certain components which become evident from the definition. The very first one is an act doing something or abstinence, which is always in the form of abstinence. Forming consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. It may move from promisee or any other person. It may be past, present, or future. It must have some value in the eyes of law. So friends, all these components, I'm going to take up legal rules as to valid consideration, and all these components will be very clear to all of you. Essentials of a valid consideration. We may call legal rules as to valid consideration, or we may call essentials of a valid consideration. In order to be the consideration to be valid, the consideration should have all these essentials. So I'm going to take up 7 to 8 points, and I will also explain with the help of examples. The very first point is it must move at the desire of the promisor. So this is very clear from the very first line of the definition. When at the desire of the promisor. So consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. There is a very important case law regarding this, which is Durga Prasad versus Baldeo. Now the case is before you, friends. In this case, Durga Prasad constructed the market at the desire of the collector of the district. And later on, Baldeo, who was one of the shopkeepers, he promised to pay some fixed commission on the sales to Durga Prasad. But later on, he never paid any commission. Then Durga Prasad wanted to file a suit against Baldeo. So it was held in the court of law that, Durga Prasad was not having any right to claim commission from Baldeo. The shopkeeper was not under obligation to pay that amount to Durga Prasad, because Durga Prasad had constructed the market at the desire of the collector of the district, but not at the desire of the shopkeeper. So friends, it's very clear from this case law also that consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. And the second point is, which is very clear from the definition itself, it may move from promisee or any other person. So when at the desire of the promisor, promisee, or any other person. So it is not necessary under Indian law that consideration must move from promisee. It may move from promisee or any other person. So there is important case law regarding this, which is Chinaya versus Ramaya. Now I would like to give you the facts of this case. You know what happened? Old mother gifted certain property to her daughter in this case on this condition that daughter would pay certain annual amount to her maternal uncle. But at that time, the daughter agreed. But later on, she said, why should I pay amount to my maternal uncle? Because maternal uncle has not paid anything to me. It was held in the court of law, and decision given in the court of law was, even if maternal uncle has not paid any amount to his niece, but consideration has already moved from mother to daughter. So friends, it is not necessary that consideration must move from promisee. It may move from promisee or any other person. Then third point is, it may be an act, abstinence, or a return promise. So act means to do something. Abstinence is abstaining somebody from doing something. A return promise is bilateral promise. It is mutual promise. So A agrees to sell some goods to B. Now both the parties are giving the mutual promise to each other. So A is the seller and B is the buyer. So this is a case of bilateral promise. Now an act, I would like to give you example. You know, it is not necessary for friends that every person should get the benefit. Take the example of surety. Now surety, when he gives the guarantee for the promise of the debtor, then in that case surety is not going to get any benefit. So it may be an act. Abstinence is person is being abstained from doing something. So consideration may be positive or consideration may be negative consideration. It may be past, present or future. Again, it is very clear from the definition itself. Has done or abstained from doing, does or abstains from doing, promises to do or to abstain from doing. So it may be past, present or future. So the debt becomes due for payment. X requests not to file a suit against him and is prepared to pay 1,000 rupees for this act. So he is prepared to pay 1,000 rupees extra. So friends, here, you know, forbearance to sue on the part of Y is the consideration for X payment. So consideration may be an act, past, present or future. Now past consideration. Consideration is said to be past where a person has already done something for another and then the promise is given by the other party. Under section 2D of the past consideration will be valid only if it has moved by the promisee at the desire of the promisor. Now award in cash for saving the house from fire. So A's house catches fire and B, you know, saves A's house from fire. So friends, you know, this will be the example of past consideration because, you know, B has saved his house from fire and the award is given by A to B subsequently later on. So this is an example of past consideration. Now consideration may also be present. The present consideration, when the consideration is given simultaneously with the promise, it is called a present or executed consideration because both the parties perform their respective obligations simultaneously. So cash sale is a very good example of this. Now coming to the next point, which is future consideration. Now when the consideration on both the sides is to move at some future date, consideration is said to be future. Consideration, it consists of promises and is promise as consideration for the other. X promises to deliver 100 quintals of rice to Y after a month, and Y promises to make the payment a month after delivery of rice. So it's clear from this example, friends, both the parties X and Y, they will perform their respective obligations in the future period. Then next point is, it need not be adequate. Now law says that consideration must have some value in the eyes of law. But how much is the consideration? Law is silent about this. Inadequacy of the consideration or insufficiency of the consideration is immaterial, but an agreement which is made without consideration is void. So, quantum of consideration has not been laid down under the law, but we are presuming that parties' consent is free one. If parties' consent is not free one, then in that case, the contract will become voidable. It must be real. So it must have some value in the eyes of law. So there are certain cases when consideration is not a real consideration. The very first point is physical impossibility. Second is legal impossibility. Third is uncertain consideration. Physical impossibility. So a person who has already died, he cannot be made alive. So it's not possible at all. And legal impossibility is, friends, that X files a suit against Y for non-payment of debt. Y approaches X brother Z and he promises to withdraw the suit for a consideration of ₹500. It is legally impossible. Because brother cannot withdraw the suit. The brother has no right to withdraw the suit. So legally it is not possible at all. Uncertain consideration. X agrees to pay an adequate amount for a certain work. Adequate and certain is uncertain element. So adequate amount, how much adequate amount? Say buyer wants to buy motorbike from seller and he says to him that I will pay you reasonable amount. Now what reasonable amount? So here, friends, consideration is uncertain consideration. And now, friends, here I would like to add here, there are 3 cases when consideration is real consideration. First one is forbearance to sue. Second one is, friends, composition with the creditors. And third is compromise of a pending suit. Forbearance to sue, the debt has become due for payment. But even then, the debtor has not made the payment to creditor. Creditor has not filed a suit against the debtor. So here, friends, consideration will be the real consideration. Then compromise of a pending suit. A pending suit is compromised, which the party forgot. The party was under the impression that he is not going to get any amount. But all of a sudden, it comes as a windfall. The suit is compromised. Then in that case, we will say this will be the real consideration. Or composition with the creditor. Debtor has number of creditors and he owes, say, 3 creditors, X, Y, and Z. And he owes to each person 3,000 rupees. He is not able to pay them entire amount. And he is able to pay only 50% of that. So, which is accepted by the creditors in full settlement. So here, friends, this will be the real consideration. Now coming to the next point, which is it must be lawful. The consideration should always be lawful. Now the question arises, when is a consideration unlawful or illegal? If it is forbidden by law, if it is fraudulent, it is of such a nature that if permitted, it would defeat the provisions of any law. It involves or implies an injury to the person or property of another. The court regards it as immoral or opposed to public policy. It is not permitted by law. It is forbidden by law. Smuggling, murder, all these are the examples of unlawful consideration. Fraudulent, where the party's intention is to cheat the other person. If it is of such a nature that if permitted, it would defeat the provisions of any law. Take the example of Hindu Marriage Act, where the person can marry once only. Person who is already married cannot go for second marriage. Bigamy, polygamy not permitted. So here the second marriage or the third marriage will be null and void. It involves nobody has a right to commit assault on another or to cause loss to the property of another. If he does it, it is not lawful, it is unlawful. The court regards it as immoral. Friends, prostitution has been regarded as immoral by the court. Or it is opposed to public policy, it is against the interest of the public. So friends, this is all about point number 7. And point number 8 is it must be something which the promisor is not already bound to do. So consideration must be something more than what the promisor is already bound to do under existing contract. Take the example of police. Police officer, what he does, the person has lost his goods or computer or motorbike, and he goes to the police station to file FIR. But FIR is not lodged, and police demands money. Here the consideration will not be the a valid consideration, because it is a duty of the police officer to lodge FIR, and if he demands extra money for that, then that will not be the valid consideration. So consideration must be something which the promisor is not already bound to do. If it is already his duty to do that thing and he demands extra money for that, then the consideration will not be real consideration. So friends, in my today's video class, I have explained all the essentials of valid consideration, or we may call them legal rules as to valid consideration. So it is all from my side. Thank you very much. And now friends, I hope you must have liked this content. Do like my videos, do subscribe to my channel, do press on the bell icon so that you can get notifications of my future next or subsequent videos. So okay friends, take care, stay blessed always. Goodbye. We will meet again.